Hello YouTube, welcome to a special episode of Pixology 101. Professor Rod here. To my left, Professor Devin.
Hey guys.
And to my right, playing Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain, is Professor Nate.
Hey everybody.
Now we're playing on the PlayStation 4 version, and we're going to be talking about the Phantom Pain here, and our thoughts, and what we gained from this game, and how we all feel about it. So, I guess to my left, I'll start with Professor Devin. What did you think about MGS5 Phantom Pain?
Okay. We've all talked quite a bit about Metal Gear Solid as a series. Everyone in this room loves it to some extent. I would guess we all count it among our favorite series.
Yeah, it's definitely in my top 3 favorite game series.
Yeah, I really, really, really love Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid 5 feels like an amazing game. It is well polished, well developed, well designed. I don't necessarily think it's a great Metal Gear game.
Metal Gear,
in a lot of ways, Metal Gear Solid 5 feels like a really amazing concept that didn't get fully finished. The gameplay feels solid. The level design, the camps themselves feel amazing. I always feel like sneaking through a camp is unique and individual each time. Every single one of them felt like a challenge to dismantle, like a trap to dismantle. But the story itself has some really questionable jumps, and there's parts of it that I feel... I have a theory about Metal Gear Solid 5. We'll go into it in a minute. But I feel like a lot of this story was half-baked.
So, in other terms, you're saying that the gameplay was superior, but because of what happened with the gameplay, the story suffered as a result.
Not even what happened with the gameplay. This is my... In terms of overall gameplay, controlling the character, interacting, the way the levels are designed, this is my favorite Metal Gear. Yeah. I love how this feels. I love how natural the sneaking feels. I love how dynamic it feels going through each environment.
Yeah, speaking of dynamic, look,
seriously,
it's spontaneous sandstorms.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many missions I've literally walked out of the front gate of an enemy camp in the middle of a sandstorm, walked right past a dude and didn't get caught. It was cool. Like, you can sneak and you can do so many amazing things in this engine and the way it's designed.
Yeah, there's one thing about Metal Gear Solid 5 that I enjoy personally is the fact that there are these random dynamic interactions that can occur based off your actions that really truly makes us feel like an open world stealth game, like a pretty realistic one.
It's the best open world stealth game I've played, and I would say I'd go even farther. Even though it may not be my favorite Metal Gear game, I'd still say this is one of the best games I've played in the last 3 or 4 years. It feels really, really good. There's no other word for it. Even watching him play, I can tell how smooth and how natural it all works, and it flows together. At no point does it look like he's stuck or stilted. Like, Professor Nate is running this like a pro. And it's because of how well the game's designed, I think, but the story has some questionable elements for me. What do you think, Professor Nate, before we go into all of that?
I was really excited for this game. I played Peace Walker just because I had never beat Peace Walker before starting this game. So I went back and I was like, I'm going to finish Peace Walker because this is right after Peace Walker, so you're going to get like all the characters, like Paz and Chico and all that.
It's almost
stuff.
a direct sequel.
Yeah, it basically is a direct sequel. Well, Ground Zeroes is at least. And let me get this guy out of here. Oh, I'm only at 50%.
Well, and at the same time, a passing patrol was just next to you, so they're gonna... Oh, they're coming up to you, man.
That's okay.
You got this. I believe.
Lay down, man.
Nope.
Oh.
Oh, well, that didn't work so well, but I have this.
Okay, you are detected. Ooh, and they have shotguns. Not a pretty picture. Well, you can't get out of here, Nate.
You let Diamond Dog, or D-Wolf die, I will never forgive him.
I'm actually critically injured in those two. I sent him against a whole platoon of soldiers, and he failed.
It's heartless. How do you not love your pupper?
D-Dog is one of the best companions in this game. I love the companion system a lot, too. Where you're not all alone now anymore in these stealth missions. You actually have a companion with certain benefits.
We got totally distracted. You were saying, Nate?
Oh, yeah, anyways. I was really excited for this game. Metal Gear Solid series is like one of my favorite series. And... Get out of here. The reason I bought a PlayStation 2 was to play Metal Gear Solid 2. The reason I bought a PlayStation 3 was to play Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yeah, I'm serious.
So I was really looking forward to this game because I really love the series. But I was really, really disappointed. Now, like you said, the gameplay is really fun. Like, I like the open world. I like the fact that you can just go around. You can approach a mission however you want and do basically however you want. If you want to kill guys, if you want to be more stealthy. You have a bunch of different gadgets that you can use. Like you saw me using the night vision goggles to get through the sandstorm there, because it makes the sandstorm like not affect you at all, but you can still see everybody. Like you can approach it because there's a day-night cycle, so you can approach at night. I think this guy sees me.
Yeah.
You don't want to get sniped by this guy.
That laser dot might be an indicator.
Right, he's dead. Oh, he's sleeping. But I was excited for it. I was really disappointed by the story. The story is really, really disappointing because this game has 50 missions, and I feel like it could have half that. And if you just took out the missions that didn't advance the story at all, because there's a lot of missions where it's just like, oh, we're trying to find Cypher. If you complete this mission and extract this guy, we'll find out a little bit more about Cypher. Next mission, okay, we gotta find and extract this guy, and we'll find out a little bit more about Cypher. It's like, oh, okay, like the other Metal Gear Solid games had. Sure, they had cutscenes, and maybe they had too many. Maybe it was a detriment, but I still felt like they that it had a story, and even though the story could be convoluted and stuff, it had a story, and you were progressing through the story. This didn't feel like I was progressing. Like, I haven't beaten the game completely. I haven't gotten to the second ending, but I got to the first ending, and it just felt like nothing had happened. Like, I had accomplished barely anything. And the first ending comes after 31 missions. So I did 31 missions and felt like I did nothing, and I spent about 50 hours to do those 31 missions. Like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to do here, but there's not. I feel like there's not a whole lot of substance. Because, yeah, the world is big. This is just one of the open worlds, but in between camps, there's nothing. And you'll revisit. Like, this is probably the 10th time I've been to this camp and done a mission here. So the game repeats a lot, and a lot of your objectives also repeat. Every mission is Fulton extract a soldier. Go in there, Fulton extract a soldier. Go in there, every single mission. I wish that like some of the missions do vary, and those are probably the better missions. But I feel like there's just so much repetition in this game, and it's not fun playing for 50 hours when I spent all that 50 hours going to the same places over and over and over again, doing the exact same thing, only slightly different. Oh, extract one prisoner. Okay, now extract two prisoners from the exact same spot.
Jumping off what you said, or going to what you said, in a lot of ways, this game feels like Peace Walker 2.
It is.
It is.
It's intentionally done that way. Like I said, I love the gameplay. And I can go on, I'm sure we will talk more about it here in a minute. But the part for me that bothers me is the fact that the story, it feels like it was stretched too thin over too many missions.
Yeah.
It's just like you said, but I think that's a fault or a side effect of the development.
It's a complete side effect of the entire game because of the fact that it takes place between a period of the whole timeline where the sequence of events that you perform in this game will not affect anything at all after the story ends. Because Big Boss will create Outer Haven no matter what and spark the whole Metal Gear timeline story. No matter what. That's the biggest problem with the story of this game is that you're doing nothing. This is all just a distraction. You have no impact on the whole story whatsoever.
Yeah, if you look at Metal Gear as a series, as a chronological event, you can really break it into two halves. You can break it into 1960s to 1980s, roughly, which is the story of Big Boss. And then there's 2000, or late 80s.
Late
When
80s.
does Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2
I
take
think
place?
2001 or 2002 was when Metal Gear Solid was started during the
Yeah, but
Outer
when did
Haven.
Metal Gear and
Metal Gear?
2 take
I
place?
think that was late
like
90s. Or
like
late
90s, yeah.
something like that.
So it's pretty much like from the 90s on, it's Solid Snake in this universe's timeline. This game felt like a in between point, and I think there was a very concise story here. Here, let me get to this because I might as well say it right now. I think that this story or this game was originally planned to be a little bit shorter and cover a little bit more areas in the world and a little bit more plot content. There's a lot of this game that doesn't show up right away, but is in there. I was talking with Professor Nate just the other day. The number of cassette tapes, like people were complaining that Big Boss had almost no lines. I'm not going to say he has a ton, but if you listen to cassette tapes, he talks back and forth much more with Ocelot.
That's where the most of the
conversations. And I think what happened is that a lot of those were planned to be cutscenes or events, and at some point during the development of this game, in case nobody was paying attention, you would have really had to be living under a rock. Konami and Kojima had a falling out, for lack of a better word. I think that falling out probably happened a little bit earlier than we heard about it in the public. Because a lot of this game, there are sections of this game, the first mission, the first time you meet Skullface in this game, like that whole mission section, there are parts of this game that ooze Kojima. Like, you could tell they were his story. You could tell it was a Kojima plot. And then there are other cutscenes. Oh, yeah, that whole prologue in the hospital is so clearly Kojima.
It's so clearly Metal Gear.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And then there's nothing again like it for 10 hours.
Until the end of part 1.
Yeah. Seriously. And what I think happened was a lot of those audio tapes, a lot of those files, a lot of those things were meant to be cutscenes, were meant to be interactions that were voiced and done. Even in some of the cutscenes, jumping back, but even in some of the cutscenes in the game, you see Big Boss make like hand movements, and his mouth will kind of move, but he doesn't say anything. And I'm like, in my head I was thinking, this would be a perfect place for a line, like he would say something here. I feel like a lot of content was cut from this game. I feel like it was cut because Kojima and Konami had a falling out. Konami said, look, we're not going to spend any more money on Metal Gear Solid 5. We're going to fire you at the end of this development, in effect. Or we're letting you go. We're turning you into a contractor. We don't want to spend any more money on this game. We just want to get it out. And that really pisses me off. Because the few genius moments, the beginning of the game, that prologue chapter, the end of part 1, like, those are moments that are so Metal Gear. Like, when you first see Quiet, when you see Eli, when you see all of these major characters, it is so Metal Gear. And at the same time, there's large chunks of this game that just feel like a generic third-person action.
But at the same time, does that mean is the series evolved into a better version of Metal Gear? Or would you say Metal Gear is always going to be that linear puzzle where you have to get by this hallway of guards?
No, unlike the vast majority of people who played this game so far, I don't think the open world's a problem. I think what the problem is that there was more stuff planned. I mean, look at the map. When you get a chance, pull up the map, Professor Nate. Because if you look at the map, those huge areas of emptiness, there could have been so much more there. Those dialogues between Ocelot, Miller, Snake, anybody in the cassette tape, those could have been real cutscenes. I feel like any of those dialogue pieces, or most of those dialogue pieces, could have been made into parts of cutscenes and explained more, like the cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid 3. But they didn't do it. So I don't think this game's an evolution. I think this
here's
game...
the map for you.
Yeah, if you look at all the blank area, but look at the bases themselves.
Well, you gotta understand, mainly the blank
activities.
areas are mountains.
Yeah, most of it is a series of linear areas that are, or linear
Pathways into an open area.
Open bases.
Yes.
And I feel like there was so much of this game that was planned and got cut because Konami didn't want to pay for it. Konami didn't want to make it this way. It feels very much like a half-baked game. The concept and the execution of the story does not feel like it would have made it past a final draft. And that kills me. There's so much cool stuff here. There's so many cool moments, and they're just minimized and taken away because...
But like I said before, because of the location of the whole timeline, you can't do anything, essentially. You really can't.
You can't. We're saying that as like people who didn't develop any of the previous Metal Gear games. I feel like you could have done some stuff in this time period. I feel like there was some stuff done. I think that this game shows the potential of a story. It has the framework of the story that would have happened here. But I don't think Kojima got enough time to really finish it up. That's seriously that's the only explanation I can come up with. Well, this feels so much like a game that was started And then somewhere in development, they went, look, we just need to rush this out. We know people will buy it. It's a Metal Gear game. Just cut these cutscenes, cut this, no one cares. Cut these interactions, cut these dialogue, cut these items. Let's go.
I actually believe that they went the path of the Peace Walker route in terms of developing the game, where because it's so focused on the base management, on recruiting soldiers with these devices, recruiting to the Outland to make your overall skills, resources better, it's not really, it wasn't really suffered through development. It's just, it was sidetracked from the fact that they mainly wanted to do the gameplay from Peace Walker, and that the story was kind of secondary because the story didn't really matter in the end.
I can see that, but do you feel that Kojima's firing or letting go or whatever you want to call it, do you think that had like no effect on this, or do you think it had some effect?
Well, I can tell you one thing. I don't know if it did have an effect, but during the prologue sequence, when you're recovering, when you first leave your hospital room, when you encounter the man on fire, and you start trying to get away from the flames, on the wall, in the hallway on a bulletin board, is a flyer for Kojima Productions, a recruitment flyer.
Yeah.
And it is very poignantly placed there, since you know that's going to be burned up in the blazing inferno behind you. It was kind of a sad little moment to see that, if you kind of paid attention there. Just knowing that A Productions did know that, yeah, it's all over. I'll just burn it all in the fire, get it all out of the way.
You know what else disappointed me in this game? The lack of new characters. The only really new character is Quiet, and she never talks. Yeah, exactly. It's like, what was the point? And there's also no real fun boss fights in this game either.
Oh, the boss fights.
That's something that defines Metal Gear is boss fights. There's no new characters. There's no Cobra unit. There's nothing like that in this game.
That goes back to what I was. That goes back to, at least for me, what I was saying. I feel like there were definitely boss fights planned, because there are some things that are clearly meant to be bosses. Like, there are some enemies, some characters, like, clearly bosses. Quiet. The first time you see the Walker, the Metal Gear in the mist with
the ghosts.
Yeah, well, the ghosts, the Parasite Squad unit. Like, I feel like those could have been made into boss fights.
They kind of semi-were, but there were semi-boss fights too. There was really they had no impact on the story except for just being
the boss fight with Quiet soldiers. Was so like underwhelming compared to like the boss fight with like the End or even Sniper Wolf.
Oh god. Yeah. And in this game, game that was quite truly like designed as an open world. Do you remember sneaking through the environments for the End's boss fight? Imagine doing it in Afghanistan, where you could have gone anywhere. You could have gotten to Quiet however you wanted, and they didn't have that.
Yeah, why have it like sectioned off to one area? You could have easily had it take place over all of Afghanistan. Like, the section you fight Quiet in is way smaller than the section you fought the end in Metal Gear Solid 3.
He took up 3 whole separate
Another
levels.
thing I have to mention is Revolver Ocelot. He's in this game. He was in Metal Gear Solid 3. Him and the boss interacted, had like a huge rivalry in that game, and they talk to each other like they've never ever met each other in this game, and it annoys the hell out of me.
It kind of... Revolver Ocelot takes the role of this underling under you, and he doesn't care. But I will have to say, that role is explained why that specific interaction of Revolver Ocelot and Big Boss, why it's kind of minimized, is explained in Mission 46, that secret hidden ending you can unlock. So...
Fair enough. But it goes back to that feeling for me that this was very half-baked. There were no bosses. There were no
new characters.
There were no major moments. And I'm not saying that you needed cutscenes to the length of Metal Gear Solid 4's cutscenes. I get that a lot of people did not like MGS4's excessive cutscenes. But having more than, like, 3 or 4, like... full cutscenes.
Yeah, there's only about 4 cutscenes in the whole first chapter. I've had more cutscenes and story elements in just the 2 or 3 missions I've played of the second chapter already than I did in the first chapter.
You know what? I kind of feel sorry for Kojima because of the fact that the major complaint of Metal Gear Solid 4 was the fact that it's too long, too many cutscenes, it's the cutscenes are about 5 hours, while gameplay itself is only like 2.5 if you really rush through it and just watch it all.
Yeah, you could beat Metal Gear Solid 4 in 5 because to get the big boss mask, you had to beat it in less than 5 hours. So you have to skip all the cutscenes. So without cutscenes, that game is theoretically 5 hours long.
Yeah, and then for MGS5, he hears
opposite.
that complaints, and it's the exact opposite this time. There's few little cutscenes. There's no story content. It's just going around this open world and doing all his activities, and I'm not getting any real story out of it. He's trying to find that delicate balance between gameplay and story that I'm guessing just couldn't really find it.
That's what I'm saying. He probably had more story planned for this, but they didn't get around to filling it out. There's so much in this game that feels cut down or trimmed out. The base component for Peace Walker, the skeleton of Peace Walker, is there. You can tell that this is very much, like we said, you can tell it's Peace Walker, but it feels like he wanted to retake that base element from Peace Walker, that base gameplay, that the base building mechanics, the core gameplay. I shouldn't say the base gameplay and then follow it up with like the word base. That doesn't even make sense, folks, listening to this. But no, the core gameplay of Peace Walker, and then he brought in the base mechanics, and then I feel like he was going to add on story and add on content, and it just didn't show up. Like, it never got there for one reason or another, whether that's because Kojima got fired, whether that's because they drastically reduced the budget. I feel like there was so much of this game that I'm missing. I've played about 31 chapters as well. I've beaten the first part and I'm going into the second part of it. And all of it feels so good, and at the same time, I keep thinking to myself, like, oh, I could see where you would explain more about Psycho Mantis here. I can see where you'd explain more about the Parasite Squad here. I can see where you'd explain more about Quiet here, and here, and here. And how is Miller shows up how many times? Like, after you rescue him. Really, how many times
he only shows up in a couple
He shows up only in cutscenes. Only in cutscenes.
Seriously. Like, it just felt like there were so many moments where it's like, oh, I feel like there should be more story here, but for one reason or another, it's just gone. And that hurts me, because I really wanted to see this story. I liked the idea of seeing big bosses fall, because we knew it had to come eventually. And I wanted to see how it would be handled, and how it would set up the events of Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4. And I was really interested in the idea of the AI from Peace Walker, the one that was the boss.
boss's AI.
Yeah, the boss's AI. I was excited in seeing if that would make a reappearance, because they implied it might. Like, I was excited in seeing all these things. And they just, like, that hurt. Like, that hurt me personally as a fan of the series, because I wanted to see those things. I really, really wanted to see them. And I feel like they were planned or hinted at, and then they didn't come to fruition. They just didn't come into existence.
The best AI is in this.
It is,
but it doesn't do anything new.
No. Yeah, and why bring it back if you're literally just going to be like, hey...
Well, it is important
here
for one critical story moment.
Yeah.
Yes, but has Kojima, like... Look at how this game's cutscenes play out. Kojima, based off of Metal Gear Solid through Metal Gear Solid 4, even Peace Walker, like, does this really seem like the way Kojima would have put out this story? I mean, I know a lot of people complain that Metal Gear's story is convoluted and it doesn't make sense and it's stupid, but I'm pretty sure he has at least a good idea of what's happening. All of the other games make sense in their own way. Metal Gear Solid 2 is a little bit more standalone than the others. Metal Gear Solid 3 relates to Peace Walker. Metal Gear Solid 1 relates to 4 a lot. 2 relates kind of to 1, or it continues some of the concepts of 1. 2 feels more standalone. But even then, all of those stories have a traceable narrative through them.
But the traceable narrative of this game is all about Big Boss. It's all centered around one character.
It's that gap period. But instead of answering a lot of questions, I feel like it's just like Mother Base 2.0 time.
Exactly. There really isn't any questions to answer during this time period. That's the whole thing, you know? Like, sure, you can raise a couple to answer them yourself throughout the game, but overall, in terms of the Metal Gear universe, there really wasn't much to answer during that timeline.
The Enfants Terribles, Terrib...
They only ever mentioned that in passing so far, what I've played.
You could have mentioned so much of that. There is a whole secret war that goes on between the end of Metal Gear Solid 3 and the beginning of Metal Gear Solid between the boss
and Cypher.
Yeah. And that's the point of this. But it's more of a secret than a war in this game. Like, they don't show you that much. And it...
Yeah, I gotta say that one of the things you guys really, really need to do is watch that secret ending if you can get to it. Because it actually answers some questions about that secret war.
I hope so, because, man, like... Ugh.
But I don't know if one... I hope it can. I would pray desperately.
It actually leaves a bit of leeway for another Metal Gear game.
Which is the other thing that really pisses me off. Konami has already said that they're going to do they've already talked that Metal Gear Solid is profitable enough, or they implied that they are interested in doing a Metal Gear Solid 6 or something.
Last time I heard is that they were only focusing on the only title they were really focusing on in games was Pro Evolution Soccer, and that was it.
Konami sucks. We could go into an hour and a half. I'm really angry at Konami. I blame Konami for a lot of what I think is wrong with this game.
They own the
Maybe
Castlevania and Metal Gear IPs.
God, two of my favorites.
And Silent Hill.
And Silent Hill IP, what the hell? Did you guys know that there's a Silent Hills reference in this game?
Yeah.
The radio to the tower when you first go to the Devil's House, the radio along the way is that news story of Silent Hills from PT.
Oh.
It's that same announcer talking about how the father shot the mother, 10-year-old boy or something comes in and he gets shot too and stuff like that.
I'd heard about that.
I thought that was pretty neat, but sorry about that. Sorry to distract you.
It kills me. Like, Konami... I really hate Konami because they own 3 of my favorite video game series of all time,
and they're not going to develop on
no
any
intention to do anything with any of them. And I think, furthermore, they canceled Silent Hills, and I think they cut back this game. I think those two things happened at the same time. Like, I think they shut down Kojima Productions. They were like, "Look, we just need to get Metal Gear Solid 5 out. Cut what we have. Go with this. We're getting rid of Silent Hill." It sucked. There's so much that was here. That
I just don't feel like this game has been cut back at all because it more or less is a bigger, expanded version of the Peace Walker game. That's all it is, really. The mission-based objectives by levels, it's not given to you fluidly. You have to actually slowly do it.
To me, it doesn't feel like a Kojima game. It feels really, really, really good. And you can tell Kojima worked on it. Like, there are parts of it that feel like a Kojima game.
Then would you say this is a Metal Gear game, then? Would you call this Metal Gear? Or would you call this just would you say that could this be a whole new IP?
I think this is a poor Metal Gear Solid. Like, this is a great game. Like you said, it plays great. Like, it functions well. The controls are amazing. There's so much you can do. There's tons of stuff. It's a great game, but it's not a great Metal Gear Solid game. It doesn't, look at Metal Gear Solid 4. That was the perfect send-off for Metal Gear Solid. Kojima took every single character that wasn't dead in the series and he gave them an ending. He's like, this is how this ends. This is how this character's story ends. And I absolutely love that game because I played through that game because after Metal Gear Solid 2, I was like, oh my god, who are the Patriots? What is all this crap that's going on? And having played through Metal Gear Solid 4, seeing the ending of the story arc and seeing all that stuff, it just felt like it felt like it was the end of a chapter.
Well, it was such a nice bittersweet ending for all the characters.
And Kojima
wrapped it
wanted
all
to be
up.
done with Metal Gear for years. I don't blame the man. He didn't want to keep doing Metal Gear games. So Metal Gear Solid 4 was very clearly, it was like, here, these people are done. You're not going to see them again. Shut up. Stop asking for more things.
So do you think that do you actually think then that as a result of Metal Gear Solid 5's development that Kojima agreed to it, but he said, after this, I'm done. I'm just going to move on. Like, if you really want me to make another game, this will be the last game I ever make for you guys then.
I seriously think this would have been his last game, even if he wouldn't have gotten fired and had all this stuff with Kojima and all that. I think he would have been done.
I think this would have been his last Metal Gear game, for sure. I don't know that it would have been his last game forever, because he said once or twice that he wanted to do...
Solid game. I didn't mean game forever.
He said he's wanted to do, like, Zone of the Enders again, and clearly he wanted to do Silent Hill. But yeah, what I think happened here was I think there was a lot of tension after the development of Metal Gear Solid 4. Because Kojima very clearly ended it. He's like, we're done with this. But Konami could still make money off this series, so they probably went to him and were like, look, we get that you want to be done with this, but it makes us a lot of money. Let's make another more.
Yeah.
And he probably said no.
He made 2 more because he made Peace Walker, and then he made this one.
But those were kind of half-assed if you really think about it in terms of the gameplay, because all the story was all concept art, basically.
Yeah. No, Peace Walker, and even Peace Walker's gameplay, like, if there is one thing that Metal Gear Solid 5 does really, really well, it takes all the fun moments from Peace Walker and refines them and got rid of a lot of the shit that I hated from Peace Walker. Now, it doesn't get rid of all of it. There's still large chunks of that, like, why am I redoing this? Why am I fighting these same bosses?
I'm not a huge fan of the base building because it puts grinding into Metal Gear Solid. Because one of the 2 missions at the beginning, Mission 8 and 9, you kind of need missile launchers because you're taking out vehicles. And I didn't have my research and development team high enough to research missiles yet, so I went around and just found guys that had high research and development and Fulton in the map. And it's like, it kind of stopped the story because I'm like, okay, now I can't play the story anymore because I got to sit here and grind for stuff. And it's happened several times in this game, so I'm not a huge fan of
the story is
the base
restricted
building.
by the gameplay itself. Like, we introduced this
Yes,
new neat
very much.
base building gameplay that is a very core mechanic. If you expand on it, you get better in items, but we also introduce missions that require you to get these items if you don't focus on them.
I mean, that's Peace Walker in a nutshell. It was gameplay dictated story. Metal Gear Solid 5 is a continuation of that. But I think it's even worse because I think that Konami and Kojima weren't on very good terms. They didn't like each other after Metal Gear Solid 4 because he didn't want to continue it. And I think it very much, like, the development of the Fox engine, the development of this game very much reflect that. Because it was such a huge piece of news when it got first announced. I mean, Metal Gear 5 was everywhere. Metal Gear Solid 5 was everywhere. And then, like, almost halfway through, a little bit after halfway through, it just dropped. Konami and Kojima got into whatever they got into, and it just dropped. And I think that changed this game a lot. I don't know that it's all bad. Maybe some of the stuff that got changed was for the better. I can't say that. Maybe Kojima was very egotistical and arrogant, and they didn't like that, and so they started giving more work to his team or doing something that way. But I think a lot of this game changed during that period, which we will discuss here in a second. I just realized this has been going on for quite a while, so we're actually probably just going to do a part 2 on this.
Yeah.
And then the next part we'll continue finishing up this, and then we'll talk. I'd like to hear your guys' ideas on what you feel could have been improved in this game, or what could have been redone, because we've all played a lot of Metal Gear, and I want to know your guys' feelings on what could have been made better for this game. But we will catch you back here for the next episode of the Metal Gear Solid 5 discussion. On Pixelology 101. Don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, and have a good evening.